Hey guys, Noah Ohlsen here. We are going to do a quick little Q&A. A bunch of people are unfamiliar with what goes on behind the scenes at the CrossFit Games. Going to give you guys a little bit of insight. Post on Instagram. A bunch of people asked a bunch of different questions. Here we go.
What event was the most challenging and why?
The most challenging event for me, I think, was the Ringer 1 and 2. It just so happened to be the event that also had the most riding on it as well. But physically, to go all out on the bike, which you had to do in order to get a decent score on the first part, left me really exhausted for that second piece, a little more than I expected it to. So that was tough to deal with physically and then obviously emotionally afterwards because I had lost the lead at that point going into the final event. So that one was a toughie on both sides.
What was your favorite event?
Ooh, my favorite event. I would have to say Mary for sure. Like, no question, the feeling of euphoria after that event, after I had won my first event, and the finish line was right where the crowd started. So being welcomed by thousands of people roaring in the Coliseum was just indescribable. That was one of the coolest moments of my entire CrossFit career. I also love the swim. Every year I love the swim because it gives you the most time to just be out in nature. I love to swim. You're kind of on your own with a lot of time to think and reflect, and just I was very grateful while I was on the swim, so I enjoyed that.
How do you train the week before your competitions? And the other one was, what does your week look like before game day? When is your last training day?
There's always a pretty similar structure to the week before a big competition, and we call it a taper week. So you'll train pretty hard leading up to that week, and then that week, the intensity and volume gets pulled back a little bit. It's not as high as usual. And I can give you guys an exact layout of what it looked like this year. So we checked in on Sunday. The game started on Thursday. Monday, we did a 20-minute run with a bunch of random movements mixed in every 2 minutes. So we would just kind of jog, and then on the 2-minute mark, do some burpees, some push-ups, some lunges. Got a session in the gym that day, did a couple moderate touches on the lift. So I think we worked up to a moderate snatch, moderate clean and jerk, an EMOM of a bunch of gymnastics movements, and a little bit of light barbell stuff. The next day, on Tuesday, we went back to a CrossFit gym, did a bunch of other EMOMs, a little mini Metcon. I think we did 21-15-9 wall ball mixed with some double unders. It was 25-50-75 double unders. Some touches on the machines, the bike, the rower, the ski erg, some really high intensity sled pushes. I don't know why, but I think 24 to 48 hours before you compete, you're supposed to do a short burst of really high intensity. So we did a couple all out sprints on the bikes, which almost felt like too much in the moment, but I think it keeps your system ramped up and doesn't fatigue you too much because it's really short. Got in some really good food, took all of Wednesday off, just did some stretching and made sure that my body was feeling good, and then Thursday kicked off the competition. So basically, to summarize that, a taper week is just little touches on everything at moderate to high intensity and lower volume.
What does your nutrition look like during the actual games, like during those 4 days?
Hey, Joanne, tell me. When the games started, I tried to keep my nutrition the same that I keep it throughout the training year. So I tracked my macros, tried to get in a hefty breakfast, make sure I was drinking carbs in between sessions, a lunch, and then a big dinner. I realized that keeping track of my macros on those days was just a little bit of unnecessary added stress. So after the first day of the games, I decided not to track my macros, but just to kind of eyeball it and make sure that I was getting in the same amount of food that I know is appropriate for a training or competition day. So I would have as big of a breakfast as I could handle. In between sessions, would make sure I was carbing up. And then in the evening, also try to have a big dinner and just get extra carbs in through like juices and gummy bears and pretzels, and I felt like no amount of carbs was going to be too much that weekend.
So what's like an example?
Hi, babe.
Hi, love.
An example of a day of
Breakfast.
eating at the game? Okay. So the hotel that we were staying at had an awesome view, and every morning I would order room service and eat it out on our balcony, which overlooked the lake. And my breakfast was a 3-egg omelet with some veggies, 2 hash browns, a big bowl of oatmeal with honey and bananas, and an orange juice with Evertrain's base, which is a multivitamin. So that was a breakfast. It was enough to fill me up, but I still had about 2 hours before we competed, so it settled by then. After the first workout, I would drink some carbs and some Evertrain Post. Mostly that was it between events. Sometimes some gummy bears, sometimes like a little oat bar or an RxBar. And also I had the Country Archer. My like snack between events was carb shake, Country Archer, beef or turkey jerky stick, an RxBar, and some gummy bears. And then for dinner, we went out to the same place actually every night, this place called Forage Kitchen. I would just get a huge rice bowl with a bunch of extra goodies in it, plus a smoothie, plus anything else that I felt like would be extra carbs before going to bed.
Cool. What other type of recovery stuff did you do besides nutrition?
So every night before going to bed, I did a few different things to try to keep my body as healthy as possible, and I felt like this year I did a pretty good job of it. Actually, during the competition day, I would do an ice bath after each event, which I almost never do, and that could have played a big role this year. I think that that's something that I'll implement on those weekends. I really don't enjoy it. I hate that feeling, but it felt like after each piece, my body was really hot and torn up, and just to soak in the ice would kind of reduce some of that inflammation and not make me get as tight in store. So I do that throughout the day, and then when we got back to the hotel room, luckily my fiance Joanne is in PT school, so when we got back to the hotel each night, she would do a few things on me like cupping and massage. My forearms were pretty sore after most of the days, legless rope climbs, bar muscle ups, pull-ups. So she did a bunch of cupping on my forearms and biceps, which was really helpful, while I would have the MarcPro pumping on my quads. And I had the Hypervolt gun that I was using to kind of just basically anything that I could do before going to bed for recovery I would do. So MarcPro on my legs, Hypervolt on my arms while Joanne was working on my arms. And then right before I went to bed, I would basically lather my body in PureSpectrum's Afterwad like CBD cream. And I don't know if any of that or all of that combined to make me feel better, but at the end of the day, I was feeling pretty good throughout all 4 days of heavy competition, so some of it must have worked.
What about sleep? How much did you sleep?
I feel like I got a pretty good amount of sleep. I slept well every night, and that's in contrast to years past. The nerves usually keep me up. I think because of the structure at the games this year, not knowing the events was actually helpful for me, because if I knew what the events were, I'd probably lay in bed, my body anticipating whatever we were going to do the next day and like thinking through the workouts. Because we didn't know anything, for me it was easy to just fall asleep and figure out what we had coming the morning that we figured it out. So I would say that I got anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep pretty much straight through the night, average every day, which I'm sure also helped with recovery.
Sweet.
Yeah.
How did you keep such a positive mindset during the weekend?
That was a huge change for me this year, was being able to stay in a really positive mindset. I think there are a lot of factors that contributed to it. One of the main ones was that I chose before the weekend started to journal every morning and really just try to be grateful for the entire experience and to enjoy the journey and not think so much about the destination or the placement at the end of it, and just try to enjoy what I was doing in the moment. And there were a lot of positive things that happened along the way that reinforced that. I feel like even before the competition started, at the athlete dinner, I just had such a good time interacting with people from all over the world. That left me on a high going to bed that night. And then when the competition started, I had some positive experiences that just kind of filled me up and kept me kind of riding that positive wave throughout the weekend, and just sharing meals with really awesome people that I love and were there to support me and my friends. And there was just so many positive vibes that I felt like were energizing me throughout the competition, that I was able to keep a really positive mindset even on the events where I didn't do as well as I may have wanted to.
Sweet. Are you tight with any of the other competitors, and what's it like behind the scenes with them?
Yeah, I'm definitely very good friends with a lot of the competitors back there. I would say some of my main friends, and I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings by leaving them out, but Chandler Smith, Travis Mayer, Jacob Hepner, Ant Haynes, Cole Sager, with the guys that I trained with leading up to the games to warm up for each event with them. It was very comfortable and familiar to me, so I spent a lot of time in the warm-up areas with Chandler and Will and Travis, and we kind of had our game plans, and we were like a little mini team, even though we were all going to compete individually.
Cool. Do you have any favorite moments that not competition related? Like with fans or with off the floor?
One of my favorite moments every single time that we competed out on the field, we basically had to go through a little tunnel of the bleachers to enter and exit the field, and every time I would exit, just sharing high fives and photos and autographs with fans in that one area. I had a really special moment there last year that was nostalgic to me then, where for whatever reason everybody in the stand started to chant my name, and there's a photo where I just stopped and kind of like soaked it all in. So every time I went through there, I felt that same positive emotion and would high-five every single hand that I could reach, was jumping up the bleachers to try to high-five people, and that was just really fun and special. Another really special thing for me during competition is every event before and after in the stands, I like to try to find Joanne. It's just another comfort thing for me. I can lock eyes with her, and I know she's there watching and has my back, and it just makes me feel good. And specifically after Mary and a few others, we locked eyes, and there's a little slow-mo video where I was saying, "I love you" to her, and that's always special to share those moments of celebration. Even though we're apart, I know that we're like in it together. Post-workout meals. So we kind of have been pigging out a little bit. The evening after the games, we have a new tradition of going to the Madison University. Is that what it's called? Madison University?
I think so. Like it's called like the
University of Madison.
The levels or the
terrace,
Union.
The terrace. Yeah.
Something.
There's a little market in the University of Madison's campus, and we have a new tradition of going there, ordering a bunch of pizza, and getting ice cream right after. So that was a fun Sunday night celebration. When we got to Chicago on Monday, had to have some Chicago deep dish pizza. We got Jenny's ice cream. Back here in Miami, we went to Pincho Factory last night, got a couple burgers and fries, some McConnell's ice cream. I'm almost ready to clean it back up. Had the salty donut this morning, so we'll probably start getting back healthy pretty soon, but trying to celebrate and enjoy it now for a couple days.
And how did your body feel after the competition?
I was sore for sure. Every year is a little bit different where you feel the soreness. This year was kind of a general full body moderate soreness. Like my biceps were a little sore. They still actually are a teeny bit. My quads were a little bit sore. But I've had years where like biceps were wrecked and I couldn't straighten my arms out for a week, or years where my quads were so rocked that I had to walk down the stairs sideways. And this year, luckily, I didn't experience any of that, just kind of that general full body soreness. I'm almost ready to get back to it. I was thinking about working out today, Thursday, but probably save it till tomorrow.
Best lesson you learned about yourself this year?
The best lesson that I learned about myself this year that I'm really hoping I can carry over into future years of competition was being a smarter, more composed athlete on the floor. In years past, I think I was very emotionally charged about every event, and I felt like I had to win every single event, whether it was a good one for me or not, and that just really put me in a nervous, anxious position before each event. This year, I let go of that, and I just really tried to play my game, and I knew that there were events that were not my jam, and I was going to kind of do damage control on that one, and I've said that in the past, but I still always got after it and made a mistake, and something really bad happened. And this year, for example, on the ruck run, not going to be my best event for sure. And rather than trying to keep up with the lead pack, which I think I would have panicked and tried to do in years past, and on a 4-mile weighted run, that can definitely be devastating and you could blow up and end up in the back of the pack. I knew what pace I wanted to hold. I wanted to try to average about a 7-minute mile for those 4 miles with the weighted bag. So I had my watch on. I was able to reference my pace every single mile, stayed right on track, took a middle of the pack score, which is not amazing, but also wasn't devastating. And at the end of that day, I ended up in first place. So the events that I knew I needed to be a little more conservative and intelligent on, I did that. And then when it was time to send it, I went for it. Like the sled push, bar muscle up sled push, that was short, fast. Those are all in my wheelhouse. So I just went 100% on that. Got a heat win, and the combo of a 24th on the ruck and a first place or a second place on the sled and bar muscle up. Again, at the end of the day, I was sitting in first, so I felt like I made better decisions on the floor that were not based on in the moment emotions and were more just me playing my game and being smart about it.
Awesome. Last question. Now that you've reached your goal of getting onto the podium, what's your next goal?
It's actually really funny that the microphone is right where your nose is. You look like
Pinocchio.
Frosty the Snowman. Now that I have reached my lifelong goal of standing on the podium at the CrossFit Games, if you had to guess, I would hope that you would guess that I want more. I want to win the CrossFit Games. I've always said that. I've always wanted to win the games, but now more than ever, I feel like I was right there, and I feel like I'm capable of it. I know what it's like to get second, so the only place I can go from there is up. I'm not worried about finishing poorly. I've done that before. I've finished in second before. The only thing I haven't done before is win the CrossFit Games, so I'm going to train as hard as I can this year, leave no card unturned, and know that I gave it my best shot every single year that I competed at the games and have no regrets. That was one thing that I said before this year, is that if I closed out my career without stepping on the podium, I think it would always be bittersweet, and I would say I never reached that goal. Now that I've accomplished that and I'm not going to have to hold on to that, I think the one thing that maybe could eat at me if I retired without winning would be just that. So I'm going to make sure that that's not something that bugs me for the rest of my life and knock it out next year. Got 2020 vision for 2020. Let's go.
Cut. Sweet.